Utility Board in open session.
Now reconvene the special call meeting of the Lubbock City Council for the Electric Utility Board. It appears that we have lost our quorum. I do not expect us to have a quorum for the balance of the meeting, so I will adjourn the special City Council portion, City Council meeting for the Electric Utility Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as we move into the open agenda, item 5 is public comment. I don't believe we have anybody signed up for that. Okay, so with y'all's discretion, I'll move that we bring item 8 up to the front of that agenda. We're fixing to lose a couple of our members, so I would like to move the action items up onto the agenda. So item 8 is to discuss and take minute action setting the date, time, and place of the November and December 2018 meetings of the Electric Utility Board. And I think I'm just going to open that with discussion. Basically, the regular date that we would have our November meeting falls on the week of Thanksgiving. And so I believe what we wanted to do was move that meeting up a week. And Mr. Kessner, I can't remember the date.
Appears to be the 13th.
November 13th. Now, the date for our December meeting is going to be, is that the 18th?
Maybe the 18th.
I don't know how that falls with the council calendar.
Mr. Chair, the council's second meeting in December is now scheduled for Monday the 17th.
Okay. So would y'all prefer that we meet before or after you, or what is?
I don't think unless there's something, unless staff has some reason to think that there would be something that would be, we would need to take action on in December that would ideally happen, where you'd have to need to be before us.
Okay. I mean,
Think of anything right now.
So I guess what I'm hearing is we should move the November meeting to the 13th and leave the December meeting as it is.
You need a motion on that?
I think we need to have a motion to move the November meeting.
Yes, sir.
But otherwise, the December meeting will stay in this.
We could take no action on December and that would be the 18th.
So moved.
Okay.
So motion to change the November to the 13th.
Second. Right. So the motion made by Ms. Stafford, second by Mr. McMahon. All right. Any further discussion on that? On to all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. That would then bring us to the consent.
Chairman, can we request that whoever sent out the original notice on that, cancel it and send us a new one, so we don't, that way we don't, that makes it a lot cleaner than all of us doing it ourselves if we do that. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's go to the consent agenda, items 9, 10, and 11. And I would ask if anybody wants to pull any of those items and take them separately off the consent agenda. Okay.
Chairman, I'm going to motion that we approve the item on consent agenda as stated.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Bowman, second by Mr. Odom. And I will just read the brief description. Consider item 9, consider resolution authorizing LP&L operating purchasing manager to execute purchase order with Texas Electric Cooperatives for substation structures and equipment for McDonald substation. Item 10 is a purchase order to Texas Electric Cooperatives for substation structures and equipment for various substations. Item 11 is an amendment to professional services agreement with ECI, Electric Consultants, Inc., for professional services, and that relates to professional engineering, construction management services, more particularly described in the amendment, which the amendment is attached to the consent agenda. I'm sure all of you read that. So motion's been made and seconded for 9, 10, and 11. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay? passes unanimously. No, you're good, you're good. Okay, so that takes care of our action items for this meeting. And Jerry, you and Mr. Mann, Kevin, y'all can, whatever y'all need to cut out here, we'll be good.
I'll be here a little bit.
Okay. Well, when we have action items, I like to try to get that to as many folks as we can. I think that's just all right, then we'll go back to item 6, presentation, discussion of the updated report by the Director of Electric Utilities or his designee regarding customer service, business center practices, procedures, and policies, customer concerns and complaints, website information, customer metering, billing forms and procedures, and LPL staff and performance. Mr. McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 9, our website has contained a number of stories that are intended to be helpful to consumers in managing their energy usage as we get into the hot weather. And so we've got plugged in reports there. We've got powerful pointers, and there's some very, very helpful information out there. I hope that as many people as possible are taking advantage of that information that we've got out on the websites. On page 10, we had some mostly positive coverage this month from the media. Stories about our AMI project, stories about no rate increase this year, which was good news. It was a positive month for the media. On page 12, again, our social media sites kind of follow our website, and we've got the plugged-in articles in there and several other things on Facebook. We've had a couple of scammers active in the city, and so we send those alerts out to caution customers about not falling victim to a scam. Stories about paying your bill with the new tools we have available, and even videos about water leaks. So we're providing, and that's, I guess that's City of Lubbock water utilities, but we've got the City of Lubbock utility site now that carries stories for both electric and for the other utilities. On page 13, we're using the social media more and more to communicate with our customers, so we monitor those Facebook sites for comments the customers make, and if there is a need for us to respond, then we do so, and often we're able to help customers with problems that they have had by engaging them on the social media. On page 14, down at the bottom, I wanted to talk a little bit about our data system load. We did have a load of 614 megawatts in June, which was pretty high. And I had some information I was going to share with you on the slideshow. If you look at our average temperatures, and so far this year, May was much hotter than normal, about 8.2 degrees hotter than normal on average. So that was quite an increase in May. That's reflected in the energy usage and the bills that customers receive in June, because we've got about a 1 month lag in the time the customers use the energy and the time they receive the bill for it. June was also hotter than normal, about 5.5 degrees, so bills going out for June usage in July have also been higher than normal. In July, so far today, it is only about 1.1 degrees higher, but it looks like the rest of this month is going to be pretty hot, so that will probably creep up over the end of the month. Highest temperatures you can see there, and the dates that they were set. I thought it was very interesting that in May we had temperatures that range from 106 to 47. That's a pretty broad spread for temperature changes in 1 month. So you had 3 days and cooling.
Welcome to God's country there, right?
I want to talk a little bit about degree days. Heating degree days and cooling degree days is an industry term that's used to sort of track the average usage, help utilities understand the usage that customers are experiencing. So the way heating degree days and cooling degree days work is 65 is kind of the base temperature. If the average temperature for the day is higher than that, you subtract 65 from it, and whatever that difference is the number of cooling degree days that you had in that year, in that heating degrees is converse. If the average temperature is lower than 65, then you have some heating degree days in there. So you have heating or cooling depending on the average temperature for the day. And kind of track it with this degree day concept. So if you look at what's happened this year compared to last year, I thought it was pretty interesting. Cooling degree days in May of last year was less than 200, so we had a very mild May last year. This year it was over 400, so it was over double what we had the prior year in terms of cooling degree days, much warmer. And in July it was significantly higher, but not nowhere near double what it was prior year. You can see that reflected in our peak loads as well. This year we had 564 for a peak in May, 614 for a peak in June compared to the numbers that we had last year. So it's shaping up to be a warm summer. We've started to get some bill complaints. We're going to see more of those as we progress through the heat of the summer. And so I think these social media and website articles that we put out there, we're doing what we can to try to help people manage their usage, but the temperatures just require the air conditioners to run more often than they would otherwise.
Is 614 the highest we've ever done?
No, ma'am. I think our peak is 640, 641.
But what is very rare is that we had a day where we almost reached 600 in May. And our peak typically comes about the second week of August. So that shows you how far ahead of schedule we are in terms of temperatures and system usage.
So really, your peak normally comes the second week of August? Generally, our weather starts breaking in August. I would think it would be June or July.
It's typically changed. Usually,
Yeah.
August is almost a big day for most utilities.
Okay, so we'll have the highest day. Okay, all right, interesting.
It varies from year to year. Last year we had a very mild August, so we
Yeah.
peaked in
Yeah.
June of last year. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
It's
it's
interesting.
very, but it's
Okay, all right, interesting. I mean, I would think statewide, I wouldn't argue that. In fact, further you go down and say late August, even maybe September, but up here it seems like it would not be the case.
Well, the other phenomenon that you have in August is all the schools are coming back on.
That's a good one.
Their load
Okay.
is
I'm thinking more about the weather
That's
side.
Very, very large.
That makes sense.
Go ahead.
Hey, are there any areas in our distribution or transmission for that matter that getting stretched out with this tightness load?
The only area that we've had problems thus far was at Chalker substation. We've got the mobile substation inside. In lieu of the regular substation that's under construction right now, we did have an overload on that mobile substation.
We're not stressed out particularly.
We had to shift some load around to relieve the load on that mobile. There's no other areas in the system where we're particularly vulnerable right now.
How does ERCOT perform during the system as a whole? Do they have brownouts that come back to haunt them and overload?
Well, they've had some, but it's been a number of years since they experienced any rolling blackouts, as they refer to them. This week will be a good test for ERCOT. Temperatures are going to be very warm throughout Texas. Their peak load is forecast to hit a record today, and then another record tomorrow, and then another record Thursday.
And they're down in reserve now.
So their reserve levels are reduced since the cold
Plants, didn't they?
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform over the next few weeks.
And we'll probably have to answer some questions about that.
We might.
Because they've got a lot of production coming on in the next, 24 months. That's new production and something we need to be prepared to talk to our ratepayers about.
And I know that I did a lot of interviews about this in the spring, in the couple of months after we got in, because they already started forecasting a hot summer and slim reserve margins. Part of what I think the PUC commissioners and legislature have been doing is making this a conversation this summer leading into next legislative session. And they're all really looking at next summer to really be a good test of where they are in terms of reserve margin, resource adequacy versus demand.
What kind of new plants were coming on? Gas, natural gas?
Yes, ma'am. Primarily natural gas plants are coming online. There's a lot of wind coming online as well, and a growing amount of solar, particularly out west, far west Texas, between Odessa and El Paso.
So there's really, the trend is coal is being taken offline and solar, gas, that's what's growing.
Solar's growing.
Okay.
Texas.
Can I ask a different question? We go back to the outage deal on page 13. Just for my information, does our outage deal on the website still update periodically? I noticed.
Talking about the outage map.
The outage map.
No, sir, it's been down for quite some time. We've got a new version that's tied to the OrderMass system that should be rolling out within the next month or so. Hopefully by the time the next week, we'll have that.
Okay, well, I just had to check that not too long ago. My neighbor across the street, her power was out, and she called me.
Come on,
And so I checked the outage map, and there wasn't anything on there, and so then I walked around. Anyway, by the time I got over there, somebody was there, so we had.
Greg, I always give them Dave's social security number, home address,
You did?
phone number.
What I'm here for.
Well, it was kind of interesting. By the time I figured out what was going on, we already had a truck there. And it was on the old SPs.
We did have one outage that involved quite a few customers last week that was related to an XL transmission line that went out.
I saw that.
So he wasn't out, I think it was out about an hour, but they were just some sectionalizing people to expect.
Mr. Conrad.
David, I don't know if you were about to move on, but I was gonna ask you on that service orders work,
Yes.
what is that trend? It looks like it's kind of moving upwards.
The non-outage orders.
Yeah, I think this is, Larry, help me out here. What?
Non-outage orders are cut or reconnected pole, investigate issues of service, check electric service, meter change outs, full resets, testing on the meters.
So basically, everything that's not an outage.
Correct. If it doesn't fall into the street light bucket or the outage bucket, it's a non-outage.
So just service has been like repairs and is that what y'all seeing?
Well, you know, it can be a number of things. It can be one that we've had to cut off at the pole because of tampering. It can be a customer that had a problem with their meter bays, that had to be, the electrician had to repair it, so then we got to send somebody out there to reconnect it. A number of things like that. Lines down, we get calls for lines down that are not really electric line, it's telephone line that's down.
So what's the difference between when it's the start of November and before the downturn?
You know, I think we just started tracking those statistics about this time last year, so I think there's probably some improvement in the recording of the data.
Mr. Bowman?
Do you have a permanent street light crew?
Yes.
Did they maintain the lights on the roof?
Yes.
Even the ones on those big 120-foot poles?
Yes, sir. We've got one string of lights that's been out for about a month now. I know it's between Quaker and Indiana on the south side of town, and there's a bad underground. The underground circuits on some of those lights are embedded in that concrete barrier wall, and they shift from time to time. So it requires coordination with TxDOT to get repairs made for those circuits.
Text on it, 27. Lights.
No, we maintain the lights on I-27 as well.
Do they pay them?
No. So in order to maintain those lights on the loop, you have to schedule a time with TxDOT when you can do it. You have to have a signage truck that rolls along behind the crew that's doing the work. And so it takes some scheduling and some events.
Good question. Go ahead, David. I think you're still in your report. So.
Yeah, on page 15, the last thing that I was going to comment on, the call volume has been picking up. Of course, get more calls this time of year as the bills start getting higher. And then you may notice that with the meter reading error rate took a blip in the wrong direction this month. Minor rise up. And I understand that's because we've got some new employees out there, so it's gonna, you know, they go through a training process and they go through a learning curve to get up to speed on reading that, so hopefully that'll fall back in line really quick. I did want to comment on some of the construction activity, commercial construction activity. On page 22, we had 6 new service requests, including Covenant New West Hire, that's going to be a big facility. And then the West End retail buildings, my wife and I were out there last weekend, and that place is growing like crazy. I don't know if y'all been out there lately or not, but there's more new stuff out there than I knew was out there, so, and now they're adding additional outlets, so that development is going strong. But it's, I guess we're seeing a very vibrant commercial sector activity continue.
Are we reaching our territorial limits out there?
We can't go much further west off of Milwaukee. Stuff along Milwaukee, I guess that's actually on the loop. We go between Milwaukee and the loop, and we can't go much west of that. There is quite a bit of development on Milwaukee.
So is Milwaukee kind of the dividing line?
Yeah, that's kind of the edge. We go just the other side of it, but not far past. I think it's 200 feet the other side of it.
Questions from Mr. McCollum?
That was all I had in my report, but since metering is in the director's report, Andy did want to give a status report on the AMI project.
Okay.
I want to do that.
Yeah, on the back of your books, I've inserted a memo. It may not be exactly in this form every month going forward, but we will have in the director's report section going forward kind of a monthly update on where we are with the advanced metering infrastructure project. And I may not go into it in detail each month, but since this is the first one, just to let you know that after the approval by both the board and the council, which occurred, the council approval occurred on the 14th of June. The very next week, on June 20th, we actually had the kickoff meeting. Itron was here on site to kick that off and get that underway. We held detailed workshops on the 20th and 21st of June. There is a project schedule that will be completed as of tomorrow, which will incorporate all the major milestones and specific tasks for the vendor, for LPNL, for the city folks who are involved in that. We've also begun the surveys for where all the 54 locations where we'll have the collectors, where they will be installed, so that is already underway. And also the design work for all the interfaces, for all the systems that AMI will interface with has already begun as well. We'll also include a section that identifies risks. Every project has risks, and so we want to be transparent about that going forward. I don't think anything that we've identified as a risk today is alarming. It's just we will provide those to you. For example, the equipment delivery schedule for our network equipment, there is some delay that we're seeing there. We think we can overcome that through the rest of scheduling that project. And interfaces that we'll be working on over time will always be a challenge for us because we'll probably uncover additional interfaces as time moves on. But those two are the big risks that we've identified at this point, but we believe that they can be mitigated and taken care of without any major project delays. So that's just a real quick recap, and if y'all have any questions, I'll try to do that, or I have Michelle Cook, Jamie Cook, and Todd Stoker are also in the room. If y'all have any specific questions of them, they are project leads on that.
Andy, just one question. I know that, when we awarded the bid, it also had the water. And was the water, for the water to be on it too, that has been delayed or on hold?
Well, it just hasn't been approved yet by the council. They will consider that through their budget process this summer, and so I believe it is going to be recommended to the council for their consideration, and then so we've identified that in the timeline, and we understand that if the council does approve, and therefore on October 1 we could begin that work on the water portion of it. So we're anticipating all of that and getting all the work behind the scenes in case they.
Okay, so they still haven't done it, but hopefully it will be approved so that it can all be done at the same time,
So
because that's the smoother piece, is that correct?
And we believe if the council does approve it and doesn't, where we could get underway on October 1, that works nicely with the schedule.
Thank you.
Ms. Patrick, I need to remind you, the chair was in the process of recognizing Mr. Beck.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, he probably deserved it. He probably deserved that because he just talks all the time.
When you said that? When said that?
I forgot what I wanted to say. Now, did you wordsmith this paragraph about risks?
I'm sorry?
Did you write this paragraph that starts with risks?
No, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but no, I didn't. Should I take credit or not?
Well, Todd may relate to it, you may, but I wish some of the larger meter projects that I was involved in my former life, our customers would have understood that there are risks, not failures.
Sounds like you're about to have another formula.
No, I think that's a very well put paragraph that identifies the fact that everything's not a failure. The project besides is an ongoing business.
Yeah. Well, and give credit to Todd and Michelle, who were the really authors of that. I'll give them credit,
Okay.
even though it was a compliment.
Good credit.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Odom.
On the 54, how many people is that going to run it through?
that's the entire system. That'll
That's the
cover,
entire system.
that'll cover the entire
But
system.
isn't it like 5,000 or 2,000 for the first, the troubleshooting and all that?
Well, the entire network will be installed at the very beginning, even though we'll only have a pilot in one section of the system. That network that's installed covers the entire city. Now, does the 54 include the water?
Yeah, I was going to offer that clarification. 54 includes 12 in the water-only territories, so those are being site surveyed and planned, but until we get approval, we won't put all of those in.
But yeah, I thought in that pilot section, you were doing it across the bill to get a clear feedback, right?
Yeah, these are the network collectors, and that will cover the entire service territory. When we put in the approximately 1,000 meters
1,000, that's how many, okay.
for the pilot, those will probably only communicate to 2 or 3 of those collectors, but that will help us test out the whole system and make sure
I was trying to see how many 1,000 we're going to start.
Correct.
Other questions?
Anything else on item 6? Okay. Well, if there's not any other questions or comments, then let's go to item 7. Presentation and discussion of financial and capital statements, financing options, audits, and financial policies of Lubbock Power and Light relating to debt issuance issues, reserve account funding, cost allocation, revenue and expense projections, purchase power cost recovery factor, and customer metering, billing, and service issues. Mr. Sayers.
Sure. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because Andy has some slides on the bonds that we sold today. And, we have some really good news on that, so I'll try to get through this pretty short order so that you can get to Andy's slides. Each month we like to compare where we're at relative to our neighbors in Amarillo, who at the end of May were about $10 cheaper than us. And we don't have all of the data. I think we're still looking for data out of Dallas and Houston to update the survey average, so we still only have that information through April, but they were about $2 cheaper than we were. We'll update that as we get that information. If you'll recall, at the May meeting, we lowered the pass-through rate for the summer because we were in an over-collected state, and you can see that we actually over-collected in June. To our surprise, both sides of that equation, the revenue and the expenses, went in a positive way for us. We ended up over-collecting $1.3 million, largely due to what Mr. McCullough was talking about. We just had much higher temperatures than our model anticipated. We always try to be conservative with what we think we're going to sell in terms of load when we set those rates. And so, just for example, if you get your bill on June 1st, you're billed at the June rate, but that's really your May consumption. And so just to give you some context, last May, we sold 223 million kilowatt hours to our customers. And so without getting too far into the weeds, our model predicted about 220 million kWh for this May, and we ended up having sales of 256 million. So just the sheer volume alone related to heat is really what drove the overcollection. And then on the expense side of the equation, we were expecting an invoice from Excel for about $16 million, and it came in at 14.2. So both sides of the equation just kind of worked out in our favor, which is good. It gives us some room if we stay in that overcollected state to hopefully be able to lower rates going into the winter. So,
Okay,
yes,
Jed,
sir.
are you talking about May or June?
This is the June invoice.
June.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if you'll recall, I mean, the majority of what we sell through the first 15 days of any given month is really sales from the previous month.
For the invoice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but if your invoice goes out June 1st, you're billed at June rates rather than the May rates. And so that really, even with the lower rates, the higher sales in May due to the hot weather, and then that hot weather continued into the first half of June, really kind of drove that over collection.
So about a 10% increase in total kilowatt hours. Bills that were the 250 to 220 from 225.
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay, so where did the overcollection wind up at the end of June? Or is that what's on the chart?
Yes, this is June right here. So we basically gave back 1.3 million from April to May,
Yeah.
and then over collected the same 1.3 million
1.3 in June.
in June. On your balance sheet,
We were at 2.9 at the end of May.
right,
Overcollected.
into May, and so I guess that would get us to what, 4.2
Yeah.
roughly for June. So anyway, I feel like that dovetailed well with what Mr. McCall was talking about and kind of helped. I'm actually glad he had those slides because that helps explain, even though we lowered the rate, why we had a bump in our overcollections. On the actual financials themselves, revenues are up about 5 million relative to fiscal year to date the same time last year, and that's largely due to the fact that we got rid of the seasonal base rate for rate 1, which is the majority of our customers, and so we've seen higher revenues in the fall, and that will provide some diversification, and we won't see that jump up as much in the summer. But it also makes us less dependent on summer revenues. If we were to have a cool summer, it doesn't impact us as much. A few things that stand out: supplies, maintenance, and other are about $2.4 million higher than they were at the same time last year. That's largely driven by costs associated with ERCOT, and then also related to the KUBRA upgrade for our statement processing. If you'll recall, that was really supposed to happen at the end of 16-17 and kind of bled over into 17-18. So that's the driver there. And then you can see purchase power is down. It keeps coming in lower than our expectations each month. That may change as we go into the summer, but to date we're about 1.2 million lower.
So on page 25, which is presented a little bit differently than the slide.
Sure.
What you're just talking about, other services and charges, year-to-date, May 2018, is 5.3 million in operating expenses. Previous year was just under 3. So that's what we're talking about. That's what you're referring to as the ERCOT costs.
The majority of that is really.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
On the balance sheet, not a whole lot to report. If you'll recall, back in April, we made a big debt payment, and so we saw a big dip in our cash, and that's beginning to come back, and that's a very seasonal thing. We'll see that trend back upwards towards, I would expect, to at least where we were last year, fiscal year end. Accounts receivable, also very seasonal, as bills continue to go up during the summertime related to volumes, so do our receivables. So, and then restricted investments is down about 5.3 million. We'll see that increase as we sold bonds today. I think we'll book that in August, and so the restricted investments related to those bonds will increase. Current liabilities, deferred revenues, about 2.9, which at the end of May is the over collection. In June, as we discussed, you'll see another 1.3 million added to that. And then bonds payable currently at the end of May are down about 15 million, which just means that we've made our principal payments throughout the year, but that will increase as we put the debt on the books in August. And then just the budget comparison, how are we doing relative to budget? So you can see we're at about 56% of budget in terms of revenues. Last year we were at about 60%, largely driven by lower purchase power costs, and then all other revenues is actually lower as it relates to power marketing efforts that just haven't been struck in the market as much to this point in the year. A couple things that stand out: transmission is at 80% of the budget through May, which 66% is really our target. They're quite a bit higher, especially compared to last year at 45%. As we all know, the ERCOT transmission and legal fees have really driven that. Fund level expenses are right in line with where they were last year, but relative to the 66% that you would expect if things moved in a linear fashion is obviously out of line. But we've made all of our debt payments with the exception of one interest payment in August, and so that will begin to get back in line with what we'd expect at year end. Sorry, that slide's a little bigger than I expected it to be.
You can see it on this one. Yeah, it looks good over here.
It's hard for me to see that one. Overall, we spent about $2 million on the capital program. If you're looking at the actual CIP report in your books, project 92532 actually has negative funds remaining, which doesn't really make sense, but we also did a budget amendment that we brought to you all in June that was approved. We just moved funds at your approval between projects, and so that will be remedied on the next report. So that's all I have. I'll let Andy. Yes, sir.
And if we can go back real quickly to the statement of revenues and expenses.
Okay.
You may have explained this, but it looked like on operating revenues there was an increase there in charges for services. But
In May to May?
say it again. Yeah, from May to May.
Okay.
Every year. And then the purchase of fuel power, there was an increase. Shouldn't those move or be directly correlated?
They're not going to be perfectly correlated, no.
Right, but you have one moving down, the services been less, but then you have the actual fuel and power being higher.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot more that goes into charges for services than just metered revenues. So I would have to drill into that to give you a specific example or a specific answer, because what also goes into there is work for like streetlights, tampering fees, late fees, payment arrangements. There's all sorts of things mixed in there. Obviously, metered revenues are the driver.
Even with those being added in there,
Right.
that would almost overstate, right? That would overstate the revenues.
Right. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Without digging into it, I don't have a specific answer, but I can get back to you.
Base rate's going to be a big deal too, with the change.
The base rate would actually make it higher.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, let me research it and I can get back to you.
We were looking at that, excuse me. It's offset by the fact that we under-collected in May, which ran that back into revenue.
Right.
So the net total operating revenue is a little bit higher, but still squaring that with the purchase
Right.
of fuel and power it's not as counterintuitive. So.
Well, and on the fuel and power side, I mean, I'd have to look at the revenues for sure, but on the fuel and power side, if you'll recall, I mean, when we sell 10% more to our customers, that means that we bought a whole bunch more too. And so the expense side definitely makes sense to me. But yeah, there's a strange relationship with the over-under collection and kind of how that plays into the total revenues and how revenue is recognized. So let me dig into that and get back to you.
It may just be a timing deal that shows up more in the June revenue.
Right.
In the June service revenue. So anyway, we both had that question. So, any other questions on the financials? Chad, did I jump ahead of you?
No, this is Andy's part of it. Turn it over to him.
Just want to give you all an update on transaction that we did today to sell bonds. For the current fiscal year, we had about $98.1 million of bonds that we needed to sell, and today was the day, so that's why Blue and Chad and myself were not here at the beginning of the meeting. But just to kind of give you an overview, there were basically three tranches to the bond issuance, a 10, a 20, and a 30-year term. A large portion of the 10-year has to do with advanced metering infrastructure project and also GIS software, $35.4 million. We had a 20-year portion of the debt that was consisted of upgrades to our distribution substations and also some new substations, the mobile substation, and underground projects such as the downtown project, about $14.3 million. And then we had 30-year bonds, which are all related to the transmission aspect of the utility. That consists of the transmission loops that we're building, the ERCOT interconnection, new substations on the transmission side, and auto transformers. So you kind of see how that is made up. On June the 28th at the City Council meeting, they approved an ordinance. It's called a parameters ordinance, and so they basically authorize Blue, the city manager, and the mayor. Any of those three folks can ultimately authorize the sale of the bonds within certain parameters. Interest rates have to be in a certain range, the term of the bonds in a certain range. So it's a very common practice. And so that was delegated to them. And then today, when we actually went into the market to sell the bonds, they come back after an order period and tell us basically what the results of that sale were, and then the city then authorizes the release of those bonds. Bond ratings, over the last number of weeks, we've been working with the rating agencies to give them an update on where we are, our project, our plans going forward, and you can see our ratings remain unchanged. AA minus from S&P. They did make a modification to our rating, going from a stable outlook to a negative outlook. I think they see the large amount of hold harmless payments, the increase in debt over time as some pressures on our utility, but they did not downgrade us, which was very good news for us. Then the A1 rating from Moody's and A+ rating from Fitch with stable outlooks remained the same. We did see a lot of positive verbiage within those reports. If you go through and kind of compare some of the things they wrote about compared to last year, you see some real improvements. One of the things I was super proud of was that all the discussion of the contentiousness between the city and the utility board has really been eliminated from the reports, which is real nice. The years and years that's been kept in there, and so it was nice to see that they really see political support from the council. They see the ability for the board and the council to get along very well and to run a business as it should be. So those were all good things related to the ratings. Quickly, I just wanted to show you kind of a market review of where interest rates have been. I know there's been a lot of discussion on interest rates are going up. The Fed funds rates have been going up over time. And you can see in the light blue, which is the 5-year Treasury, you can see it has risen pretty dramatically since really at the low point, really of recent time in 16, a little bit less than 1% to today, a little less than 3%. So a pretty significant rise there. The 10-year Treasury, again, you've seen a rise, a pretty significant rise, not as dramatic as the 5-year. But then the 30-year, you actually see it not really much impact over time. It's actually lower than it has been for the majority of history, but really not much impact there. What that really indicates is our yield curve is flattened pretty dramatically, and so as the short term has really come up, the long term hasn't really made a lot of moves. So given the fact that our bonds are much more longer term in nature, we didn't see a significant increase in rates as one might expect, by looking at the markets. This is the bond buyer. It's a 25-year revenue bond index. It's been tracked since 1979. You can see where rates are today. The yellow line is where rates are today at 4.34% on there. And so you can see almost 91% of the time over history have rates been higher. So we are at the very low end. Historically, we're not as low as we were back in 2016, but we're still, historically speaking, at a very good point in time to borrow money for capital projects. What I wanted to do is kind of give you an idea of who was involved with this financing. Our financial advisor is RBC Capital Markets. We've been represented by them. They're also the financial advisor to the city. Been represented by them for many years. Our bond counsel had a little bit of a change. It's the same attorneys that we're working with. They just moved firms, so they are now with Orr, Carrington, and Sutcliffe. Our underwriters counsel, who we've worked with for many years, they represent the underwriters who are selling our bonds. Is McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton. They've been working with the city for many years as well. We select underwriting teams to actually sell our bonds in the market. This year, our lead underwriter is Goldman Sachs. In all the years that I've been selling bonds for the city and for LPNL, I've never worked with a group as doing as good a job as Goldman has done. The saying goes that if Goldman finds interest in you, they are all in. And if they're not really gonna work with you if they're not very interested. So we really caught their eye. We think that's been very helpful in this transaction. They worked with us to put together a road show, which is basically it's an online presentation that all the investors can go on and look at our story to help us understand it better. It's a little bit more information. It's not even more information that's in a official statement that goes out. Official statements are usually 100+ pages long, very small print, very detailed, but the road show basically tells our story and captures their attention a little bit better, we believe. And so we think that was very successful. So Goldman Sachs leading the team. The other underwriters involved were Citigroup, JP Morgan, and Raymond James. We had very good involvement from all four firms. Couldn't be more pleased with them. Rating agencies I talked about just a moment ago. We have verification agent who is the city's auditor, BKD, who goes back and verifies all the information, and then a paying agent, Bank of New York Mellon, who we've had an association with for many, many years. So that's kind of the team who all is involved in the issuance. This is basically the results. This isn't really the results. This is the information as of this morning, before the sale. I just didn't have an opportunity to update the slide after the sale was complete. So the date of the bonds will actually be August 16th. That's when we will receive the funds. Will be deposited into our account, $98.1 million. Our first coupon payment will be made on October 15th. The last maturity will occur in April of 2048. This morning, we anticipated that the all-in true interest cost, this is including all the costs related to the issuance of the bond, so you add all that in with all the interest cost, we expected it to come in at about 3.69%. It ultimately came in at 3.64%. So we shaved off about 5 basis points through the day, and we really believe that the market wasn't really a lot better today than it was this time this morning or early or late yesterday. It's just we think our underwriting syndicate just did a spectacular job in marketing and getting those bonds sold at very attractive levels. The rest of the information is just kind of statistical information related to this slide. One thing that I wanted to show, this is a chart that when the bonds, there's an order period, and so from, it was 9 Eastern to 10 Eastern this morning. So it's called Game Day. This is a snapshot, a dashboard basically that we can monitor throughout that order period to see where the sale is. If you notice here, these black lines, this is how much we had available to sell in each given year of this bond. And so you can see how many orders we had above what we needed. We had a $98 million bonds, and we had over $850 million worth of orders for those bonds. What that does is, when you have 9 times oversubscribed to your bonds, that gives you leverage to work with those investors and bring those rates down. And so that's what happened. Anywhere across that curve, we lowered the interest rates anywhere from 5 basis points up to about 15 basis points throughout, which is very significant, very aggressive from Goldman's standpoint for them to be able to do that. So this was a little bit earlier in the order period. At one point we had about $783 million, but it ended up at about $850 million in orders. So you can see every single maturity was sold, and then we had many orders on above and beyond that those folks will go away empty-handed. But we were very, very excited about the deal today. Blue, I didn't know, did you have anything you wanted to add to?
No, this was a great sale. I mean, the chart speaks for itself to show what kind of interest LP&L is gathering out in the market. So this is a good news story for LP&L. Goldman did a fantastic job. Their desk was top notch getting these things sold.
And just to give you an idea of who some of the buyers of our bonds are, we have State Farm, Merrill Lynch, Nuveen, Wells Fargo, Standish Mellon, PIMCO, Bluefin, Eagle Asset Management, Wilmington Trust, PNC Bank, Plains Capital Bank was actually in there, Vanguard, Eaton Vance, Northern Trust, TIAA, so lots of really big names. We had 41 investors that, 45 different investors that participated. This is by far the best showing I've ever seen in a bond deal that I've been involved with. Obviously we're very pleased with it. Got us some very good rates. One thing I did want to mention as well is, in our financial models, we are conservative in the interest rates that we are anticipating. Obviously, when we put the budget together, it's well in advance of when the bond sale occurs. So I was looking at our the interest expense, what we had modeled versus what we're going to pay for it through here, and it's about $1 million a year in savings in interest costs. So very, very significant. So we're very pleased with that. So if y'all have any questions, turn it over to you.
Mr. Conrad had a question.
Eddie, what are T-bills set on? What are T-bills going for right now? I think this is pretty indicative of how sound you guys are.
Yeah, let's see, well, treasuries in the 10-year, they're around the 290. The 30 years around the 3 range. So.
And for us to be where we are, I mean, that shows that there's very low risk perceived by the market. So.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, keep in mind, there's been a lot of fluctuation in the treasury market. The municipal market doesn't react exactly the same as the treasury market. So you've seen a lot of volatility in treasuries, right. But munis have stayed fairly stable considering everything that's happening this year. But still, at this all-in tick, it's phenomenal compared to the market as a whole.
With all the tax law changes this year too, it changed who's buying our bonds, somewhat. Banks aren't as interested in our bonds as they might historically have been. So it was interesting. We were, curious to know how that might impact us, but we were very excited to see, the turnout today.
And one thing that, we've been talking to Goldman all week. One thing that I found interesting was today was the 3rd highest day in terms of supply in the market. I mean, there were some big deals going on today outside of us. I mean, the airport in Houston is $600 million, Transit Authority and New York City was $1.2 billion. I guess late last week, there was less than $1 billion issued, and then today was the third highest day of the month. And so, it was a little, it could have been a little nerve-wracking in terms of, are we going to get enough people to subscribe to this? And to get the response that we did was very, very good. It's exciting, and Goldman Sachs, their desk said that this is a grand slam. So I think just to hear that from them is encouraging.
Mr. Oak, so if you're in the market and you're a betting man, the whole market's saying buy it all, and then S&P has issues with saying that the outlook's not favorable. Who's missing there?
Well, what's interesting, because Goldman's been kind of contacting us throughout the week, and they've been talking about how excited investors are, how interested they are in our story, because we are unique. We have a different story than most public power utilities have to tell out there. They believe in our story. They believe we are headed in the right direction. So to me, that means a lot more than maybe a rating agency perspective, because ultimately, at the end of the day, what the investors think is the most important issue. And so I think that won out today. I think the marketing efforts of Goldman, our efforts to get that word out to the investment community really helped us. S&P is looking at they're only looking at really one metric in their decision to place that negative outlook. And I think that they had even mentioned in their report that the direction we are headed is a very good one, and it will be very financially beneficial to us. But there is this time frame, the next several years, where we do have some risk. We haven't completed the integration or the build out of the transmission system yet. We haven't gone through a lot of exercises that have to happen. Rating agencies are going to be nervous. They're going to take the opposite end of that spectrum and be ultra conservative on what they see. And until we're really complete, we've made those hold harmless payments. We've connected up with ERCOT. Customers have been transitioned up to the competitive marketplace. At that point, I think they see a huge upside in our rating. I really believe that once we get past this stage of uncertainty, we'll have some upgrade potential by far. Moody's, they do a scorecard of all the utilities. So they look at all these different aspects, from the financial to the political to the economy and all those things, and they're actually have ranked us as a AA in their scorecard, but they left us at the A1 because of the uncertainty and the unknown of what the next several years. So we have to deliver. We have to make this integration work and do it on time and under budget, and as we are saying it will today. And I think once that's behind us, I believe we will be getting some upgrades in the future because of all that.
You said the good rate we got, was about $1 million. So is that over the year or over the life of the bonds?
That's the annual savings.
Annual savings.
Mm-hmm.
And will we be able to retain that, or what are we going to do with that savings? Because that'll change, the budget, the interest. Will we pay off sooner, or are we just going to keep it? Do we know, or too early to tell?
Well, it'll all go into the mix of everything. There's always costs that increase beyond what we expected. There's costs that decrease. This will definitely help us going forward. One of the drawbacks of having lower interest costs is our TCOS revenues will be lower than what we budgeted as well. So there's some movements in the financial model that once we get back and present next year's budget, that'll all be factored in once again, and time will tell that
It's a very pleasant plus to have.
Yeah, because this also involved a lot of things that aren't related to ERCOT. For example, the $35 million related to our advanced metering. It made our advanced metering project cheaper than what we'd anticipated it would be. So that's nice.
Well, I just want to give y'all kudos for work and getting all that through. It's y'all's work that ultimately proves out, I think. We give Goldman Sachs a pat on the back. You guys are the ones that are doing the work. So,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's easy to last one. That's good, right?
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to echo what you just said and commend Mr. Birch and Mr. Sales for the great job that they do on these bond issues. I don't know if everybody is aware of the magnitude of the effort that's required for something like this. You have to meet multiple times with the financial advisor. Mr. Dole does a great job as well. You have to prepare the official statement, which if, I don't know if you look at those or not, but there's 100 pages and many new entries that have to be made in that every single year. Meetings with underwriters that take time and effort. And then the rating agency book. They put together a fantastic rating agency book this year, set up meetings with rating agencies, and you've got to tell the story. And I think Mr. Burchett and Mr. Self did a great job of putting the package together that made this a success. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Kostovich, Mr. Atkinson, the mayor for participating in the rating agency meetings.
Any other questions or comments? Thank all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate the nice words.
Does that cover the financial report then?
That is everything. Yes, sir.
I believe that was item 7, so I think since we've already covered 8 through 11, we're to adjourn.